The Senate will come to order. Senator Murphy.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. President. I impose a call of the Senate.
The Senate is now under call. Senator Murphy.
Mr. President, I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and that the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, if you be so kind as to stand. Members, prayer will be done today by Reverend Jen Collins from the Redeemer Lutheran Church in Minneapolis. And as a gentle reminder, following the prayer, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Greetings. I invite you to take whatever prayer posture that is comfortable for you, but let us pray. Creator, known by many names, we greet you in prayer this day. As leaders in this place and space we gather, may we all participate in wise decisions for our common life together. As we seek to serve our neighbors and communities across the state, we give gratitude for the service and the tireless efforts upon their behalf. May they continue, these representatives, to continue to have courage and kindness and compassion for all the work that they do. Serving with peace and dignity, we give great thanks and continue to ask for your help. As we conclude this prayer, we say amen.
The Secretary will take the roll.
Abler, Anderson, Barr, Bolden, Carlson, Champion, Clark, Coleman, Swadzinski, Dames, Dibble, Dornick, Draheim, Drazkowski, Duckworth, Eichhorn, Farnsworth, Fateh, Frentz, Green, Grunhagen, Gustafson, Hochschild, Herr, Hoffman, Housley, Howe, Jasinski, Johnson, Johnson-Stewart, Klein, Coran, Kreun, Kunish, Kupek, Lang, Latz, Liskey, Limmer, Lucero, Mann, Marty, Matthews, Maye Quade, McEwen, Miller, Mitchell, Mohammed, Murphy, Nelson, Umu Verbaten, Pappas, Pa, Port, Pratt, Putnam, Rarick, Rasmussen, Rest, Seeberger, Utke, Weber, Wiesenberg, Westland, Westrom, Wickland, Zhang.
A quorum is present. Members, if you want to follow along, I am reading from today's Senate agenda, dated Monday, February 10th, 2025. We will begin with the third order of business, messages from the House. The Secretary will read the message.
Mr. President, I have the honor to announce that the House of Representatives of the State of Minnesota is now duly organized pursuant to law and has elected the following officers: Lisa Damuth, Speaker; Patrick D. Murphy, Chief Clerk; Stephanie R. Miller, First Assistant Chief Clerk. Kathy K. Carlson, Second Assistant Chief Clerk. Lori Hodap, Chief Sergeant at Arms. Erica Brynildson, Assistant Sergeant at Arms. Andrew Olson, Assistant Sergeant at Arms. Carl Hamry, Index Clerk. Signed, Patrick D. Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Members, no action is required. We will now proceed to the fifth order of business, which is reports of committees. Senator Murphy for a motion to adopt committee reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee reports printed in the agenda be adopted with the exception of the report pertaining to appointments.
On the adoption of the committee reports, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, we will now call on Senator Murphy for a motion to lay appointments on the table. Senator Murphy.
Mr. President, I move the committee report pertaining to appointments be laid on the table.
To that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, we will now proceed to the eighth order of business, which is introduction and first reading of Senate bills. The bills listed on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated with the following changes. Members, if you want to see the changes, please proceed to page 3. You will see Senate File Number 1147. That bill is referred to the Committee on Transportation. The next change is reflected on page number 4. You will see Senate File Number 1158, and that bill is referred to the Committee on Transportation. And also on that same page is Senate File Number 1162, which is referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. As I mentioned, members, the bills listed on today's introduction calendar with the changes are given their first reading and referred as indicated. Members, we will now proceed to the ninth order of business, which is motions and resolutions. We adopt the author's motion as one motion. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, I will now call on some individual senators for motion. I'm going to begin today with Senator Mann.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File 930 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and be re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. Both chairs have agreed, Mr. President.
On that motion, any discussion? Senator Mann moved that Senate File Number 930 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Dibble for the next motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File Number 931 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and be re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. Mr. President, this is my bill, and both chairs have agreed to this change. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Senator Dibble moves that Senate File Number 931 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. We will now go to Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File 932 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services.
Senator Johnson Stewart, have you talked to both chairs, and are they in agreement with this request?
Yes, they are, Mr. President.
Senator Johnson Stewart moved that Senate File Number 932 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. We will now go to Senator Swazinski for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning to you. I move that Senate File 933 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. Both chairs are in agreement.
Senator Swazinski moved that Senate File Number 933 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and re-referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. Any discussion on that bill, on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Maye Quade.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File 1119 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety. This is my bill, and both chairs have agreed.
Senator Maye Quade moved that Senate File number 1119 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection and re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, we will remain under motion and resolutions. Senator Murphy to designate special orders. Senator Murphy.
Mr. President, pursuant to Rule 26, I designate the following bills be made special orders for immediate consideration. Members, the list is on your desk.
Members, that special order list is on your desk, and we will begin with Senate File number 334, Senator Maye Quade, for the READ Act implementation bill.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, members. Last biennium, we invested over $100 million into the READ Act to support our evidence-based literacy education for students and training and support for our educators and our districts. I am incredibly proud of the READ Act, particularly because of everyone who had their part in making sure it passed and is being implemented, from educators to districts to our regional centers of excellence to the state of Minnesota and to all of us. So thank you to our large coalition, our nonpartisan staff, and to my fellow legislators who are both on this bill and have helped work on it. Before you today is a very short and simple bill that we pass out of the Education Policy Committee. This is not all of the READ Act for 2025. It is but a very important, urgent, and small piece of it. This bill would allow districts to reduce instructional hours for students in the 25-26 school year in order to make time for teacher training that is required by the READ Act. And just so folks know, this is agreed upon by the entire coalition, and it's something that's going to be really important for teachers to do. I do have an amendment, Mr. President, that helps tidy up the language to make sure we're really clear on which provision applies to whom and when. And so with that, Mr. President, may I offer the A2?
Senator Maye Quade offers the A2 amendment. The Secretary will report the A2 amendment.
Senator Maye Quade moves to amend Senate File number 334 as follows. Page 2, line 18, after the period, insert. This is the A2 amendment.
Senator Maye Quade, to your A2 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment just clarifies that the hours of instruction reduction is applicable to secondary schools only for the 25-26 school year. The way we have it drafted in the bill doesn't make that quite clear.
Any discussion on the A2 amendment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The A2 amendment is adopted. We are now on Senate File number 334 as amended. Any discussion? The Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File number 334, a bill for an act relating to education, modifying professional development requirements for READ Act implementation.
Any other discussion before we go to the author for final comments? Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it, and thank you, Senator Maye Quade, for offering this bill and giving folks a little bit more flexibility. Specific to the READ Act, I hope we can continue to have some more conversations, thank you, about the different education that's offered to teachers and districts across the state. I think we've heard from many of them that they desire more than just the 3 that are currently available to them to meet their instructional hours so they can be prepared to teach us in the classrooms and help our kids read. So I know that's something that we've all been interested in working together on, and I'm hoping that in a bipartisan way we can provide our teachers, educators, districts a lot more options regarding this instruction and regarding curriculum in general. I appreciate this fix and hope there are more to come. Thank you.
Any other discussion on Senate File number 334 as amended? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Maye Quade, because you did ask and I totally forgot. Senator Maye Quade for final comments.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank Senator Duckworth for his comments. It is very rare that such a huge consequential bill is so bipartisan and so collaborative to pass, and I 100% agree. We're going to continue to work at options for flexibility and make sure that educators have all the support that they need to implement this, and we'll continue forward. This is a huge help, and we're going to work on getting this through the other body just as fast. So thank you.
Senator Maye Quade, accept my apologies for almost missing you. The Secretary will take the roll on Senate File 334 as amended. Senator Jasinski, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Housley votes aye.
Senator Housley votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 62 ayes and 0 nays, the Senate File 334 as amended, it is passed. I almost said adopted. It's passed. Remaining under special orders, we will now go to Senate File 202. Senator Kreun.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the opportunity to present Senate File 202. As I begin this presentation of this bill, Mr. President, I want to take you back a long time ago, all the way back to 1905. It was the first year of this chamber that we're in right now. It was the first legislative session. And Mr. President, Senator Ray Jones was presiding over the Senate in 1905. And the reason I bring this up is because that's the last time we had any substantial changes to our partition of real property bill. And that's what we're here for today. Mr. President, this is a real property bill sponsored by the Minnesota State Bar Association Real Property Section. So a lot of smart people have looked at it, and I'm happy to present it today. The bulk of this bill deals with partition of real estate. And for those of you that don't know, partition of real estate is simply the division of real property among co-owners. There's two kinds of partitions: partition in kind, which is physically dividing up the real property into separate parcels, think agricultural land. And then there's partition by sale, when the property can't be physically divided. The property is sold and the proceeds are divvied up among the co-owners. What this bill essentially does is it makes this a more user-friendly process to actually make partition a realistic option for property owners in Minnesota. It reflects what the parties want to do in real life. It's more efficient and less expensive for real people. The Minnesota Partition Act will be more like a traditional court action. And the big change, Mr. President, is will allow for just one referee rather than 3 referees, which is the current practice. It provides more flexible provisions for cost payments. And the big change here, Mr. President, is that realtors can now be the referee, and the compensation for the referee can be the traditional realtor commission. So this will make it much less expensive for ordinary people going through this process. It also gives judges more structure to follow and more discretion in the result on a case-by-case basis. And another big change is that under the old act, partition in kind was the default option, and this new act takes that away, so we'll likely be seeing a lot more partitions by sale, which will reflect kind of the reality of how these work. The second part of this bill, Mr. President, involves eminent domain. This is more of a technical change in a procedural matter. It clarifies how to initiate an appeal of a commissioner's panel decision determining the value of damages caused by the condemning authority. And the reason why this is so important, Mr. President, is you could have an eminent domain proceeding that involves 100 parcels or hundreds of parcels, but there might only be 1, 2, or 3 parcels that are actually on appeal. And what this does is it clarifies that service on those appeals are limited to those parcels that are actually at issue on an appeal, and it also allows for e-service. So when you put these together, it makes this clarification will make it less expensive, and it'll benefit the courts, practitioners, government entities, and most importantly, our property owners. The final part of this real estate bill, Mr. President, is transfers on death deeds. This was before us last year, and we had made some really good changes. This is just a little cleanup effort of that effort. A transfer on death deed is a deed that transfers real property to a named beneficiary when the owner dies. The whole purpose of transfers on death deed is to avoid probate, make it easier for regular people to transfer their real property in a way where they don't have to hire a lawyer and they don't have to go through probate. And so it's a really good real estate vehicle. The 2024 law, Mr. President, made it easier to fix mistakes for recorded deeds. And you can imagine that does happen because we're dealing with people that are not represented by attorneys. Sometimes they make mistakes and they need to clean that up after the fact. What this bill primarily does is to make the 2024 changes retroactive, which was the intent of the bill last year, but through an oversight that didn't happen. And I want to also assure people that last year there was an insurance provision that had to be negotiated with the Insurance Federation. That part is not retroactive, and so this won't change anything. There's only upside and no downside. And like I said, Mr. President, this is sponsored by the MSBA Real Property Section, who does outstanding work on these things. And with that, Mr. President, I'll yield for questions and save final comments for third reading.
Senator Latz.
Mr. President, will Senator Kreun yield for a question?
Senator Kreun, will you yield? He will yield. Senator Latz.
Actually, Mr. President, I don't have any questions. It's a good bill. I support it.
Any other discussion? Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator Limmer yield?
Senator Limmer, will you yield? He will yield. Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Senator Limmer, for yielding. I just have a question. I understand that back in 1905, you were one of the co-authors. Could you explain to me what brought this bill about?
Senator Limmer, to the question, if you were here in 1905.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dames, I was busy in a conversation with Teddy Roosevelt at that time and missed the conversation.
Any other discussions on Senate File 202? Seeing none, the Secretary will give Senate File 202 its third reading.
Senate File Number 202, a bill for an act relating to real property, providing for partition of real property.
Any other discussion before we go to the bill author? I just want to see if there's any other discussion for third reading before we go to Senator Kreun. Seeing none, Senator Kreun to Senate File 202.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank my co-author, Senator Latz, for his wonderful question. And more importantly, Mr. President, I did want to take this opportunity to thank Kevin Dunleavy, who testified in favor of this bill in the Judiciary Committee, and Kevin's given hundreds of hours free of charge to the Bar Association to come down to the Capitol over a number of years to help explain to legislators complicated real property issues. He's been an invaluable service not only to the Bar Association, but to the people of Minnesota. And he's retiring after this year from that role, and so I thought it would be appropriate just to thank him for his years of service. Thank you, Mr. President.
With that comment, the Secretary will take the roll on Senate File 202. Members, please vote. Senator Jasinski, those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Housley votes aye.
Senator Housley votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There have been 62 ayes and 0 noes. The bill is passed and its title agreed to. Members, we will now go to the 13th order of business. Announcements of Senate interest. Any announcements of Senate interest? Without objection, the following senators will be excused from today's session: Senator Frentz, Senator McEwen, Senator Anderson, and Senator Wiesenberg. Any other announcements of Senate interest? Seeing none, Senator Murphy for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Thursday, February 13th at 11 a.m.
On that motion, any discussion? All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails and the Senate is now adjourned until Thursday. Thank you.